911, what's your emergency? 911, what's your emergency?
Be advised, Car 4 has control of the pursuit. Proceed with caution.
Hi, everybody. How are you guys doing tonight? So good to see all of you. Danger Dave, thank you so much for your super sticker. I so appreciate you. Thank you for your support. It really means a lot to me. Hey, Mitzi, how are you? So good to see you. Yeah, it was 80 here today too, Dave. A tad warm for April in my book for the Midwest, but what are we going to do, right? The Jersey Shore. Beautiful. Beautiful, beautiful. Hey, John. How are you? Good to see you, my friend. Thank you so much for being here. Tonight will be my first live call-in show. I've placed a link in the chat box, you guys, and all you have to do is paste that into your browser, and it will bring you into the backstage area of StreamYard, and you can come on live and talk with me about Delphi or anything else that you really want to talk about tonight. I'll let you guys know when we're going to do that. So just give me a minute here. I want to see if I can paste it. Let's see. Q&A. I wanted to tag it, but I don't know how to do that. Okay, guys, sorry. I was just looking at something over on YouTube. Hey, Lynn, how are you? Good to see you. Hi, Seas Through All. Good to see you. Hey, Lewis, how are you? Good to have you all here. Dave, you are wonderful. Thank you so much. Everything that you do is enough. Trust me, I appreciate it so much. That's good, John. Hey, Allie, how are you? Good to see you. And thank you so much for watching the replays. For anyone who does watch the replays, I appreciate you just as much as the ones who come to the lives. Thank you so much for watching. So tonight is my first live call-in show. I've been putting it off and putting it off. People have been asking me for a long time to do one. I didn't really advertise it very well because I've been extremely busy. And I was like, well, let's just kind of give it a shot tonight and see if anybody's interested. I'm always nervous about doing this because when I took my StreamYard course and we were talking about doing live call-ins, you have to be careful of trolls. People have gotten people that were actually trolls, and when they get them on screen, then they decide to do nasty things. So I've been really leery of this, but I know you guys, I don't think that I'm going to have an issue with that. So I'm hoping that I'll be able to keep that from happening tonight. Hey, Julian, how are you? Hi, CJK. So good to see everyone here. I just thought it would be a good night to do a Delphi discussion. There was a couple of other things that I thought about doing instead of Delphi, but I just thought with everything that's been going on, I still am getting a lot of feedback about all the news this week about Richard Allen. I don't know if you guys saw my community post today, but I did make a post. I'm going to talk about it here in a minute about a gentleman who passed away in 2021 in Indiana in jail who was schizophrenic and was not being treated. So there's a lot to unpack there and to worry about. Hey, Betsy Bling, how are you? So it's been kind of windy here the last few days. We have a fire warning to watch out for. So, hey, Melissa, how are you? Good to see you, my dear. So that's kind of what's been going on here as far as weather goes. From what I'm hearing right now, it seems really windy out there. So I know my grandson started soccer, and beautiful weather for playing soccer. So I was happy about that part for him. Trying to make sure I get my screens closed, you guys, so my computer runs well. Hey, Ray Jones, how are you? Good to see you. Hey, Brian, how are you? So good to see you guys. Dave says, in his opinion, Richard Allen doesn't believe he did this. He has convinced himself he is not guilty. His only way to control the narrative from here on out is to wither away. Yeah, very well put. Could very well be, Dave. He could very well be thinking this way. CJK said, I just read about that. He should have been in a psych hospital if they thought he needed help. When do they hold people in jail for misdemeanors? Yeah, I mean, it's just ridiculous. He was there for over 3 weeks and left, just basically left. I mean, it's really sad. But you can see why people would be concerned if what's going on, if what Richard Allen's attorneys have said is going on, why they would be so concerned. Oh, good, Lewis. Henderson, Kentucky. So, hey, Tech Death. How are you, my dear? So good to see you. So I wanted to cover a few things before we get into the discussion portion. So I'm going to do that. You guys know I like to cover some stuff, some information, give you guys some information on cases and so forth. I don't know if you guys saw, I like to put in my community posts information and updates about cases that we've talked about or that we're following. So make sure that you subscribe and hit the bell so that you get notifications whenever I post a community post or when I post a video or a live stream notification. The other thing I wanted to say is if you please would press the like button on your way out, I would appreciate that as well. That keeps me up in the YouTube algorithm so more people are able to see my videos and my live streams. The more people we have with eyes on these missing people and these cases, the better for them. So what I was going to say is I did post this on a community post today, but for those that haven't been aware of it or whatever, this is an update on the Susan Morphew case out of Colorado. I don't know if you guys are aware of her case or not, but I will give you a synopsis here shortly. But the update is that the filing with the Office of Attorney Regulation Counsel has been made by Barry Morphew's attorneys, and they want an investigation done against the Chaffee County DA who is handling Suzanne's case. Now, the district attorneys are elected to prosecute crimes. Remember, it's an elected position. But now one Colorado DA is being investigated herself. A series of complaints filed against the 11th Judicial District Attorney, Linda Stanley, have prompted an office in the Colorado Supreme Court to look into allegations of misconduct. A new 80-page request for investigation was just filed with the Colorado Supreme Court's Office of Attorney Regulation Counsel for unethical behavior. The latest filing against Stanley was filed by Iris Eiton, the lawyer for Barry Morphew, which is Suzanne Morphew's husband. He is the prime suspect in her disappearance. Stanley brought murder charges against Barry Morphew in 2021 in connection with his missing wife in Chaffee County, Suzanne. Stanley confidently told reporters that she had the information she needed to successfully prosecute Barry Morphew, and she asked a judge to dismiss the case only days before the high-profile case was set to go to trial. Charges could be refiled if new evidence is found. In October of 2022, the same office that has the power to discipline attorneys across the state confirmed to 9 News out of Denver that they were already investigating Stanley based on allegations of wrongdoing. Stanley is the elected DA for Chaffee, Fremont, Park, and Custer counties. It's always worrisome if any particular lawyer has multiple complaints or requests for investigations filed against them. It starts with a complaint, a request for investigation, and the next step is the disciplinary counsel to decide if it's appropriate. And they usually ask the lawyer to respond. Then if regulatory counsel thinks it's merited, they will actually file a complaint and seek discipline against that particular lawyer. Robertson said that the ultimate punishment for a district attorney is disbarment. Voters could, in theory, try and recall a district attorney as well. The whole purpose of having a disciplinary counsel is to make sure lawyers act ethically. They do what they, and that they're doing what they're supposed to do. If they don't act ethically, the whole system and the whole judicial system breaks down. Eiton told 9 News in October that Stanley is not fit for the job. I do not think Linda Stanley should be able to prosecute people anymore, Eiton said. In the past few years, Stanley has been censored publicly by the Attorney Regulation Council for misconduct in a different case. She and her team have been reprimanded by judges for missing deadlines and failing to share evidence with the defense team. She was also scrutinized for speaking to a true crime podcast about the murder case she was prosecuting. 9 News reached out to Stanley but did not hear back from her. She did reply to us last November when we asked her about the last investigation into her conduct launched by the Attorney Regulation Council. She was most concerned about how we knew about it, saying she did not think the investigation into her conduct was public because no one is assumed to have violated any rules. So that's where that's at. And I'm not sure what kind of an impact that will have on Suzanne's case, but I can tell you that I hope that it isn't a negative impact, because Suzanne deserves justice. And all of the evidence that we know about in this case is pointing directly to Barry, her husband. So he has a lot to answer for in that case. Hi, Boston. How are you? Yeah, I did carry or cover the Maura Murray case, Dave, a while back, a few months back. So I do not think that if you're talking about Richard Allen Ray, I do not think he will take the stand. So I do not. So that's the update on Suzanne Morphew. So another news bulletin out. This one is out of Columbus, Ohio. A teen that was reported missing in July of 2022 has been located. And unfortunately, she was located with a 41-year-old man in Columbus, Ohio. According to a release from the U.S. Marshals Service, authorities had been working with the Cuyahoga County Job and Family Services since the 14-year-old girl was reported missing on July the 9th, 2022. The teen was featured on Fox 8's Missing segment in January. The USMS was able to recover, the United States Marshals Service was able to recover her and identify the man with her on Wednesday morning. The man is under investigation by local authorities and charges are pending. The teen will be safely returned to the Children and County Children and Family Services. The continued efforts of our missing child unit and the cooperation of local law enforcement led to her safe recovery. The U.S. Marshals Service Pete Elliott said in a release just yesterday, "Every day mattered for this 14-year-old girl, and we can rest easy knowing now that she is safe." Again, it just goes to show you that when our kids go missing, we don't always know what the reason is for, and no one should just assume that they ran away. And that is one of the things that really upsets me, especially when we start talking about our teenage girls and boys. It just seems like law enforcement wants to assume that they just ran away from home. And in this case, this girl is been taken by a 41-year-old man. Now, whether or not she was groomed by this individual online or something like that, we don't know. So it's very concerning in my opinion. And it's something that we just need to have a lot more focus on. But I'm so glad that she's been found and that she's safe. And you can only imagine what her family has been through since July, wondering what happened to her and where she's been. And I can't even begin to think what this poor girl has been through, and what this man has put her through. My heart goes out to her family and her, and I'm just glad that she is safe now. And hopefully she can begin the healing process of all of this nightmare for her. I wanted to update you guys on the Shanquella Robinson story. I don't know if you guys are familiar with her story, but I was absolutely sickened by this update. Hang on a second, guys. I don't know why that's playing. Give me a minute. Trying to get it to be quiet. Okay. Prosecutors in the United States will not bring charges in what was previously a federal investigation into the death of Shanquella Robinson, a woman from Charlotte, North Carolina, while in Mexico last October. Officials with the U.S. Attorney's Office in 2 districts in North Carolina announced the decision in a statement on Wednesday, issued shortly before the woman's family members were scheduled to speak about the probe and Robinson's killing. Sorry. Why is that? Sorry, guys. I don't know where this is at and why it's playing. Where is this stupid? Okay. Shanquella Robinson is a 25-year-old American woman who was found dead in Mexico last October while on vacation. And based on the results of the autopsy and after a careful deliberation and review of the investigative materials by both U.S. attorneys' offices, federal prosecutors informed Ms. Robinson's family today that the available evidence does not support a federal prosecution. The U.S. Attorney's Office for the Western District of North Carolina said, Robinson from Charlotte, North Carolina, traveled to San Jose del Cabo with several friends the day prior. Robinson's friends originally told her family that she had died from alcohol poisoning, which ran counter to a death certificate obtained from the Charlotte television station. The federal government said it would review new information in the case if it becomes available. The attorney for Robinson's family, Ben Crump, and Sue Ann Robinson claim there is a discrepancy between the autopsies done in the United States and the ones done in Mexico. While it is this is discouraging for the loved ones of Shanquella that their own Department of Justice will not be pursuing charges against Shanquella's aggressor, it is our stance that justice is still possible for her death, and we hope that there is still a chance at justice in Mexico. And for you guys who don't know about what happened to her, it was out on, there was a video that was going around online about her and what happened to her. But she went to San Jose del Cabo, a resort city on the southern tip of Mexico's Baja California Peninsula, with 6 friends. A day later, she was found dead in the rental property where they were staying. And although Robinson's friends told her mother that she had died of alcohol poisoning, her death certificate recorded the cause was a spinal cord and neck injury. Calls for authorities to investigate her death grew after a video showing one of her friends physically assaulting her went viral. Robinson's family and their attorneys claimed that the Mexican authorities concluded their investigation and went through proper channels for extradition, but that U.S. authorities made no arrests. The family has said that they have been left in the dark and feel like efforts to bring their daughter's killer to justice have stalled. Now, following a federal investigation into the case, the U.S. Department of Justice has announced that there will be no charges filed in connection to her death, claiming in a news release that available evidence does not support prosecution. Robinson's mother told CNN that she had talked to her daughter on the morning of October 28th, and when I spoke with her, she seemed to be pretty happy. She was laughing. She seemed very happy on that trip. I said, "Okay, enjoy yourself. I love you. I will talk to you tomorrow." And I never was able to speak with her again. Robinson graduated from West Charlotte High School and attended Winston-Salem State University, where she met some of the friends who were on the trip with her. Her father told the New York Times that she ran a business braiding children's hair. After Robinson was found dead in the living room of the vacation rental home where she and her friends were staying, her friends returned home. Her father told the Times that he did not understand why they were allowed to leave Mexico. There was a video that was put out online that made the rounds of many online platforms following her death, showing someone physically beating Shanquella. The person can be seen throwing her to the ground, kicking and punching her all over her body and her head. A man standing nearby can be heard saying, "Quella, can you at least fight back?" Robinson's father confirmed to the Times that it was his daughter being beaten in the video, saying, "She's not a fighter. She didn't believe in drama and she didn't believe in fighting." It is not known when the video was taken. Robinson's death certificate raised even more suspicion about the circumstances surrounding her death. Robinson's friends told her mother that she had died of alcohol poisoning, but her death certificate suggested otherwise. It shows that she was found unconscious in the living room in San Jose del Cabo and that she died about 15 minutes after she was injured. The certificate had no mention of alcohol poisoning. And according to a police report, Robinson's friends called a doctor but didn't want her to be taken to the hospital for treatment. According to the Charlotte Observer, a police report shows that a doctor saw Robinson after someone called for medical help at the vacation home on the afternoon of October 29th. The doctor found Shanquella with stable vital signs, but she was dehydrated and unable to communicate. The doctor was told that Robinson had drunk a lot of alcohol. According to the police report, while the doctor wanted to take Robinson to the hospital, her friends insisted that she be treated at the vacation home. The doctor tried to give her an intravenous line, but before she began to have a seizure. At that point, one of Robinson's friends called for an ambulance. At 4:49 p.m., when the doctor detected no pulse, she and one of Robinson's friends began giving her CPR. Paramedics administered more rounds of CPR and adrenaline and discharges from a defibrillator. Robinson was pronounced dead at 5:57 p.m. An arrest warrant has been issued for one of Robinson's friends. Back in November, Daniel de la Rosa, the Attorney General for Baja California, told reporters that Robinson's death resulted from direct aggression and that an arrest warrant for the crime of femicide, the killing of a woman because of her gender, had been issued. De La Rosa believed that a friend of Robinson's is very responsible for her death. At the time, neither Mexican nor U.S. authorities identified the suspect, but they did confirm she is a U.S. citizen. According to CBS, the FBI opened a probe into the circumstances surrounding Robinson's death. Mexican prosecutors say that they were consulting with federal government officials in both countries about an extradition request. We are already carrying out all the relevant procedures, both the Interpol file and the extradition request. In early March, Robinson's family traveled to Washington, D.C., along with civil rights attorney Ben Crump and a group of activists. No one has been arrested, Salamandra Robinson, Shanquella's mother, said in a news conference held in Washington, D.C. The people who knew what happened to my daughter are living their lives. They have returned to work, and my family is left to wait and wait to beg for answers. Quilla Long, Robinson's sister, said that the process of trying to get justice for her sister has been frustrating and disheartening. I feel like our government has failed us, she said. Sue Ann Robinson, an attorney who works with Ben Crump's firm and is not related to the Robinson family, said the Mexican government concluded its investigation and sent all relevant information it had to the U.S. government, but the U.S. government had not done anything. The ball is clearly in the U.S. court. Sue Ann Robinson and Ben Crump urged the Biden administration, the State Department, and the Department of Justice to prioritize bringing Shanquella Robinson's alleged killers to justice and provide the family with updates about the investigation. I plan on talking to the highest levels of our government to say Shanquella Robinson is not irrelevant, and you all need to give her the same dignity and respect as any citizen in the United States would merit. Almost 6 months after her death, the U.S. Department of Justice revealed it will not file charges in her case after a detailed and thorough investigation of available evidence, including her autopsy. The department added that it had met with Robinson's family about its findings and that it prepared to review and examine new information if any were to emerge. We are very disappointed but not deterred, Sue Ann Robinson said in a press conference following this news release, sharing that the findings left the family with more questions than answers. Robinson claimed that the autopsy performed in the U.S. did not determine a cause of death or show a spinal cord injury, as the Mexican autopsy did. Shanquella's attack was captured on video, and now we are being told there won't be an arrest. It reminded me of George Floyd when we were told we weren't seeing what we were seeing. And I can tell you that I am so disheartened by this. If you guys saw the video that I'm talking about, she was naked and being beaten and kicked and just hit, and it was just horrific what these so-called friends did to her a day after they arrived in Mexico. It is just horrific. I don't understand CJK either, why the Mexican authorities did not keep them there, and why they allowed them to leave the country. It's just horrible. It's just awful. Now they have they have the issue of rounding them all up and extraditing them back to the country, and that can take a long time. I mean, she was being beaten so savagely. It's hard to say. I mean, it wouldn't take much in that kind of a beating to damage someone's spinal cord. Yeah, she was not drunk. She didn't have much alcohol in her system. It's just awful. It's almost like they enticed her to go to Mexico with them, and this was a plan of theirs to do. I don't know. I don't know that she was allowing herself to be beat up. CJK. I don't think that was the case. I think she was outnumbered. Hey, Sharon, how are you? Yeah, exactly. I feel good. I don't understand it at all. Hey, country girl, how are you? Yeah, she was totally outnumbered. I don't think she thought it was serious at first. She may have been sleeping when they came in her room. She wasn't a fighter and actually helped pay for some of them to go. She was a really nice person and a very sincere person from everything that they've been able to say about her and find out about her. I just don't know. At this point, I don't believe that. I believe what happened. I don't know why the United States wouldn't be doing more, but all I can tell you is by the video and what I saw, you know, you don't need to see much more. And the fact that Shanquella was Black, I think it plays into why the U.S. doesn't want to get involved. And I'm sorry, but that's just how I feel. If this was a white female that this had happened to in Mexico, one of our citizens with her friends, this would be nightly news. This would be Murdaugh trial, viral frenzy worthy. I guarantee you, this case and what happened to her was hardly talked about online. I mean, it was just a blip on the crime news for the month when it happened. I agree, Ray. It does sound premeditated to me. It's almost like what could have possibly happened that would have made that go on just within a day of arriving in Mexico. Yeah, I mean, it's just, like I said, it's just crazy. And I just feel bad. When I saw it, I couldn't believe it. I was like, here we go again. You know, it's just to me like they coerced her in some way, or not really coerced her, but they led her to believe they were her friends and they weren't. That's how I feel about it. And if they weren't, to me, innocent people don't run. Innocent people don't flee the country when one of your friends dies. And so that screams guilt to me. I wanted to give you guys an update on the dear little Everman, Texas boy, Noel Rodriguez Alvarez. I covered his case about 10 days ago, but when he went missing, I don't know if you guys have been following his case or not, but he's a little 6-year-old boy that has all kinds of medical issues. He's extremely small for his age. He's got heart issues. He's got all kinds of issues. And he went missing. The last time he was known to be seen was sometime before November or around November of last year. The family lived in a shed behind another man's house. And the family, there were 7 children and a husband and a wife. And the children were not all the husbands. He was the stepfather to all but 2, from what I understand. And the 2 newest children in the family were 3-month-old twins. And right before this case was brought to the public attention, the family all fled the country and went to India. And the Texas authorities are in a feverish search for him. And this past week, they went to the home, and in the backyard of the main house, there had been a new slab of concrete laid for a patio, a very large slab of concrete. And so they dug that up and they went looking because they had Noel's mother is the one who paid to have this concrete slab laid, and they wanted to find out if he was under there. Investigators believe and have announced to the public that they do believe that 6-year-old Noel Rodriguez Alvarez is dead, but they don't know where his body was disposed of. But they did dig up the concrete patio, and Everman Police Chief Craig Spencer says it was a calculated move to do, but they had to do it. No matter how small the evidence may be or how circumstantial the evidence may be, that's the only way we're going to be able to close this case. In the most recent developments, Spencer says that trained dogs detected the presence of human remains on a carpet that was underneath the concrete. I couldn't stand here and tell you today if they were Noel's remains or not. We just don't know. What investigators do know is that little Noel hasn't been seen since November or before, and his mother, Cindy Singh, and his stepfather left the country with all of his siblings. There are a lot of questions that remain. I get asked, are the same questions that we want to ask her? And he said they desperately need to talk to her. Everman police are working in tandem with other agencies, including the FBI, to get the couple back to the United States, where they currently face felony child abandonment charges. Chief Spencer said the work continues to build a strong case for extradition. In a statement to NBC5, a spokesperson with the FBI said that the FBI continues to support Everman police in this investigation. I can't get into the specifics of our assistance, and I need to refer you to the Everman police regarding any questions on the criminal investigation. In the meantime, the police hope they are closer to discovering what happened to Noel. Everman police say that investigators have spoken with the boy's biological father in Mexico several times, and that he has said that his son is not with him. Officials say they have no reason to doubt this father's statements, and that the father has reached out to them for updates on his son. Now, there was an interview done at this family home this past week with the owner of the main house, and he describes how he came to know Cindy, the mother. About 10 years ago, it was at a grocery store. He ran into her and they started talking, and I don't know if she offered or if he asked, but she told him she would be willing to make meals for him. And so he agreed to that. And she asked if it would be okay if she slept in her car in front of his house. And he said, well, you don't have to do that. I have a shed out back. You're more than welcome to sleep out there. And that's how the relationship began, as far as her being on his property. And for 10 years, she's lived back there with all of these children. And recently, like I said, she supposedly got married and to this man from India. And the gentleman who lives in the house said that he has never seen her abuse anybody, any of the children, including Noel, and that he has no idea what happened to him or where he's at. He said that she told him when he asked her that she had dropped him off with relatives and that he was going to Mexico to be with his father. But she's changed her story many times. So police believe that foul play is at hand here. He became probably too much for her to handle, but she didn't want to lose getting all the money that she gets from him from the state because of all the handicaps that he has. It's just a horrific, sad case, and I just feel so sorry for this little boy. Sorry, guys, my nose is driving me crazy. Hi, Rescue All the Dogs. How are you? So good to see you tonight. Bye, Dave. I hope you have a good drive out there tonight. Please be safe. Yeah, CJK, you're right. Another case where we're looking at extradition. It's so sad, you guys, these cases. It's just, you know, I was talking to somebody today. It's always the children that end up paying. The people that are supposed to be the ones to keep them safe and take care of them. I just, oh my God. Yeah, I am too, CJK. I'm actually surprised that the man that offered her a place to stay didn't call. The living conditions were horrific. This shed that they all lived in, I mean, there were 9 people living in that shed. So, yeah. They had tons of toys in the backyard. They had a big trampoline. There was a lot of things. He said she took really good care of them and provided things for them and made sure that they had things to do. But the whole story just screams to me of something is not right here. And obviously it isn't to authorities because they believe that the little boy, Noel, is deceased. So, yeah, Melissa, I know he does. That's why I want him to be safe while he's out there driving. It's just like, oh, scary. And Mitzi said, absolutely, CJK. Even her best friend was involved. He made viral posts about the attack, and it was horrible. Very disrespectful thug, in my opinion. Awful monsters. Yeah, I mean, just crazy. The whole thing about Shanquella Robinson's case is just horrific. I don't know if they had electricity. I do not believe there was any toilets in the shed. They would have had to have gone in the main house for that. So guys, if anybody, we're going to talk about Delphi tonight. And if anybody wants to come on and talk with me, I'm pasting the invite to do so. All you have to do is put that in your web browser and it'll bring you into the backstage area of my live stream. And then I can bring you on and we can talk about Delphi. And if you have anything you wanted to share on the case. Hey, Josh, how are you? It is awful. And you're right. Sometimes there are no words, you know, there are no words. It reminds me, though, I believe that he was back there, and I believe that the dogs probably alerted on him because it's very similar to the same situation with the Kristen Smart case. So I wanted to talk to you guys about the man from Indiana with schizophrenia who died after being kept naked and malnourished in solitary confinement at an Indiana jail for nearly 3 weeks. There's a lawsuit that has been filed this week on his behalf. So this Indiana man had a history of schizophrenia. He died in the summer of 2021 due to organ failure following nearly 3 weeks in solitary confinement at a Jackson County jail. And according to the newly filed lawsuit, the lawsuit says jailers placed Joshua McLemore, 29, in a windowless, padded isolation cell where he remained confined, naked, alone, and in constant state of psychosis for the next 20 days. The suit filed on behalf of McLemore's estate is brought against Jackson County and its Sheriff Rick Meyer, 3 jail employees, a doctor who oversaw clinical issues and procedures for the county and jail, and the company that provides healthcare services at the facility, Advanced Correctional Healthcare. McLemore's cause of death was multiple organ failure due to refusal to eat or drink with altered mental status due to an untreated schizophrenia, according to a coroner's report provided by his attorney. A history of methamphetamine withdrawal was also noted as a contributing factor. McLemore's death was the result of multiple acts of indifference, as well as systemic and unconstitutional deficiencies in the county's policies, practices, and training programs, says the suit that was filed this past Wednesday in the U.S. District Court for the Southern District of Indiana. Additionally, it says the jail did not sufficiently supervise or train its staff on how to handle serious medical or mental health care issues, and accuses Advanced Correctional Healthcare of having insufficient training and inadequate staffing. Advanced Correctional Healthcare told CNN in a statement that it was not allowed to disclose patient information, but that it is proud to have a 95% client retention rate. ACH has a reputation for solving problems by doing the right thing the first time. In the last year, at least 52 patients' lives have been saved. CNN reached out to the Jackson County Sheriff's Office for comment. Josh McLemore wasn't a criminal, Hank Balson, an attorney representing McLemore's estate, told CNN in a statement. He was mentally ill and in crisis. He was out of touch with reality and needed help. This is glaringly obvious to anyone who watches the videos of him in his isolation cell. According to the lawsuit, McLemore struggled with diagnosed schizophrenia and substance abuse and was in the midst of an acute mental health crisis. He was taken to the emergency room to be evaluated after his apartment manager found him in his apartment naked, confused, and disoriented. McLemore was arrested for pulling a nurse's hair while in the emergency room, placed in handcuffs and leg shackles, and carried out of the hospital, naked except for his underwear, according to Balson. He was charged with battery against a public official and criminal mischief damage and taken to the Jackson County Jail on July 20th of 2021. Upon arriving at the jail, McLemore was taken to the padded isolation cell and remained there almost continuously until his death 3 weeks later. The suit says he was only taken from the cell 4 times. It said mainly when jail employees would strap him into a chair and put him under a shower or clean his cell. Though food was delivered to McLemore's cell door 2 or 3 times a day, he didn't retrieve the food or would dump some or all of it on the floor of his cell, which was littered with urine, feces, and torn food containers. While in the cell, McLemore lost almost 45 pounds. Guards kept the bathroom adjoining the cell locked for most of the time he was confined. Surveillance video included in the lawsuit shows that McLemore naked in a cell that appears to have substances smeared on the walls and floor. By the time staff finally sent Josh to the hospital, his condition was so dire that the local hospital did not have the clinical resources to treat him, and he had to be airlifted to a larger hospital in Cincinnati, where he died 2 days later. A 2022 investigation by the Jackson County prosecuting attorney found that no crimes were committed by jail employees in relation to McLemore's death. The lawsuit brings a claim for the violation of McLemore's 14th Amendment rights, accusing all defendants of causing him unnecessary pain and suffering, and ultimately an unavoidable death. It is seeking compensatory and punitive damages. You have to remember, he was only charged with pulling a nurse's hair, and he ended up dying. I mean, it's just horrific. Hey, Frank Meister, how are you? Good to see you. So again, guys, I'm going to put my link in the chat if anybody wants to call in and talk about this case and talk about Delphi and what's going on with Richard Allen and everything that we heard this week. But just this case alone, I thought it was quite interesting that this came out this week when Richard Allen's attorneys last week put forth the motion to have him moved. It's very concerning. And you can see why. Severe psychosis, mental illness, delusional thoughts, schizophrenia, all of those things will cause prisoners to not eat, prisoners to behave in a not so normal, obviously, fashion. I agree with some of the things that were said early tonight in the chat when I first went live about Richard Allen and the fact that he may be using this to his benefit. That's always going to be in the back of my mind, but we need to be better safe than sorry here. I want to make sure that this man makes it to trial. I want to make sure that this man has his day in court and that we actually see a trial in this case. I would hate to see something happen to him similar to what happened to Josh McLemore, who we just spoke about. I mean, it's just, like I said, you guys, it's so heartbreaking to even think. I guess I just never realized, first of all, that they would keep someone in jail, whether it be in a county jail or a prison or whatever, in those conditions. I mean, we don't want to become as monsters like those that we are penalizing for the crimes they've committed. I mean, in my opinion, we want to remain humane and civilized. We don't want to become like them, and if we're going to put people in prison and inside of a cell, we have to care for them. They have no way to feed themselves. They have no way to wash themselves. They have no way to keep themselves, in good mental health, obviously. And for us to mistreat them is wrong. It's also wrong, especially wrong, when they have never even been to court yet. And in Richard Allen's case, as we've been speaking about now all week, this man is innocent until proven guilty. So, how do you continue to not think that this could be a really bad turning point for what's going on here in this case? I have still not heard that the motion has been dealt with by the court yet. And as I stated before, they may handle this out of the my case venue. She may have already ruled on it, and the first thing I can see them doing would be to request a mental health evaluation, a complete, full mental health evaluation of Richard Allen to determine what's going on with him and make sure that he's in pretty good physical health, considering. Now, it's understandable that he would be under horrific emotional stress because just the charges alone would be, hi, Chris. Hi, Chris. Well, if you haven't seen him, hold on a second. Let me try to pull up a photo. Hold on a sec. I'll just put this up on the screen here. Oh, because oops. All right. This is a picture of Richard Allen as a week ago, last Wednesday, a week ago. So he's definitely lost a ton of weight. He looks gaunt to me in the face, but he looks very similar to how he looked in the fall of 2016 when we saw pictures of him on his wife's Facebook, because I have pictures of him, and it's you know, it's really surprising to me. But again, if he's not eating, if he's not sleeping, and he's having all of the stress can cause horrific physical damage to our bodies, emotional stress as well. And it's just, that's just a matter of fact. I agree, Dave, with you on this 100%, that this is one reason he doesn't like gag orders, is that no one has heard his side of the story. I believe he is guilty, but all we have heard is from one side. Well, we're not supposed to really hear the sides until they go to court. That's the sad part. I mean, his defense is not going to come out and say anything except that he's not guilty. They're not going to come out and tell you what their defense is going to be, and they don't have to prove anything. They don't have to come out and tell his side of anything. They just don't. That's not how the criminal justice system in this country works. You are innocent until the state proves you guilty. Josh, I don't think so. I'll tell you what. Hold on a second. I think he changed his appearance quite often after the murders. But I think he gained a lot of weight after the murders. A lot of weight. Especially the size he was at the time he was arrested. And again, as Mitzi said, someone I love dearly suffers with bipolar disorder. They occasionally have major manic episodes where neighbors or family will call the police. I always worry they'll be shot or hurt in these emergencies. Agreed. Unchecked and diagnosed and treated mental illness is extremely what was I going to say? It can be a really difficult place to be as a loved one, to watch those that you love suffer with mental illness. I too have people in my family that are bipolar. I have people in my family that have been diagnosed as manic and are on lithium. And when they are not taking their medication, it is extremely scary. It's like the thing that we have to remember in all of this, and it's what I've said all along, and especially the way I feel, is that, you know, I believe in our justice system in this country. I believe that you should be innocent until someone proves you guilty. And just because you're arrested does not make you guilty. I do not believe that you should be tried in the press. I don't believe that Nancy Grace should be trying you on her show at night and throwing you under the bus. It could happen to any one of us in any time frame. We could be charged with a crime that we may not have committed. And because of that, we have to, because it can happen to anyone, we have to afford everyone the same treatment and the same due process. And he is innocent. This man has not been found guilty in a court of law, even though he's being held in a prison instead of a county jail. I think he needs to be moved back to county. I totally and absolutely agree with his defense attorneys requesting that. And I can tell you that it was not why they put him into the prison. They did it to keep him safe, because the county did not have the ability to keep him safe and to keep him away from other inmates. And that was the reasoning behind why they did what they did. But with that being said, you know, that's where we are with this. I was looking to see if we had any So there was a post on Reddit 3 days ago, and I don't again, I don't know if this is legit, but it's something to talk about. So when the filing for the request to relocate him for safekeeping, when that was posted to my case, it was not supposed to be made public, and that was done in error. And there's been people that thinks that it was made public on purpose by his attorneys, but it was the court who actually did it, because those filings aren't put on my case by attorneys. They're put on by people who work for the state and work for the court. And it turns out that they never intended it to be public, and now they have public from them on record stating that Richard Allen shows schizophrenic behaviors. And as I stated back on Saturday, this is truly concerning. On the one hand, it helps support their request to move him closer and to a less maximum jail. They're requesting Cass County. But on the other hand, it shows he has psychotic behaviors. And it makes one think that's exactly what could have happened the day the girls were murdered. May not be his first time he had a mental break with reality. Does anyone have any suspicion that he could have had a psychotic break like he seems to be having again? And is anyone concerned about this being public and compromising to the case? These are some of the comments, you guys, that happened from that post. Alaris87 said, I have a feeling that they may have found some medical history that qualifies him for being mentally ill. And also there is a possibility that the facility he's in treats him with medicine that affects his mental health, while the same facility blocks him receiving legal documents that he needs to understand. From everything we know and everything we know about Indiana, psychiatric care in prison or in jail is just not great, obviously. And there is a difference, you guys, if you're not aware, between jail, being put in jail, and prison. Jail and prison are two separate entities, and they are often mixed up. The difference between jail and prison is mostly the length of stay for inmates. Jail is more for a short-term sentence, while prison is for those who have long-term sentences. When thinking about it, though, prison seems like the more intense of the two, does it not? And this is because prison is thought to be much worse than jail. Though they both house people who have committed a crime, the difference between jail and prison is essentially how long they are used for and the types of people they are used for. While both jail and prison are used as a form of incarceration, jail is used more for people who are being held for a shorter amount of time. And often short refers to a misdemeanor conviction versus long, which refers to a felony. Jails are usually run by local law enforcement and or local government agencies and are designed to hold inmates awaiting trial. Since jails tend to have more populations who are temporary, the facilities tend to be less developed. Given its constant flow of people, some inmates complain that jail can interfere with their ability to be on a regular schedule, making things like sleeping, eating, or participating in exercise difficult to do on a regular basis. On the brighter side, jails often offer inmates some kind of work release or boot camp designed to help them change their lives for the better and to improve so they stand a better chance of avoiding prison time in the future. Some jails even offer educational substance abuse and vocational programs, which can keep the inmates occupied, making them less likely to cause problems. Now, however, with that said, jails are normally not as comfortable as a prison. as prisons are meant to accommodate people for a long period of time. And this means sleeping quarters are likely to not be as comfortable in a jail cell as opposed to a prison cell. And also, jails typically have lower budgets, meaning the food and other necessities can be of either a lower quality or even inadequate. This does not happen much, but some jail inmates try to use this as a breach of their rights, saying it is a form of cruel and unusual punishment. However, it is very rarely successful. Now, prisons, on the other hand, are typically operated by either a state or federal government, the Federal Bureau of Prisons. They are designed to hold individuals convicted of more serious crimes, such as felonies. Prisoners held in a place like this are often forced to spend years there, which means that living could be a little more comfortable than at that of a jail cell. Because prisons are designed for long-term incarceration, they are better developed for the living needs of their populations. There are also different levels to a prison, ranging from low security to maximum security. The comfort of living is normally better in a lower security prison, as the crimes that the inmates have committed are not nearly as severe as those in a maximum security facility. In both systems, the inmates have a right to visitation and the right to make outgoing calls home or to their attorneys, although they do not have the same right to privacy as a regular civilian. Visits and phone calls are often closely supervised and can be recorded, and anything said about an open case can and will be used against the inmate in a court of law. Inmates do, however, have the same basic rights of any prisoner, including the right to be treated humanely, the right to access the courts, a right to medical care, and a right to not suffer any kind of discrimination based on gender, race, religion, or sexual orientation. And that basically gives you a quick education on the difference between county jail and prison. I mean, his counsel basically said that he appeared to be suffering various psychotic symptoms, which counsel would describe as schizophrenic and delusional. Of course, the counsel is not a medical doctor, but he believed on April the 4th, when they interacted together, that he had seemed to be suffering from memory loss and was demonstrating an overall inability to communicate rationally with him and family members. And they experienced these symptoms firsthand with him. And since, like I said, since the attorneys are not psychiatrists or medical doctors, you do have to wonder if, they're just using the terms and they just don't know. But so it's CJK, it's like a misdemeanor. People who get shorter sentences are going to spend time in jails. Sometimes people who are there for a year sentence or a year and a half, something like that. I mean, look at Kagan Klein. He's been in a county jail, sitting in a county jail now for nearly 3 years. He's never gone to prison because he's never been to court yet. He hadn't been convicted of anything. And as they stated when I was reading you the differences, they don't normally put people who haven't got a conviction in prison. It's not a holding place where they hold people awaiting trial. People who are waiting their trials go to county jails. So, Hey, Delphi Primetime. And yes, Mitzi, you're right. Once convicted, they can hold you in a county jail until they have processed you through the prison system and get you ready to go to your quote unquote your new home. I wondered too if he was possibly on the spectrum early on. I said that after I saw him and observed him and the things that people said about him. I thought that it was possible, but we don't know enough, Dave. We just don't know enough if he's on the spectrum or not. But it sounds like he's antisocial to some degree. But then again, you know, he seemed social when he played pool and stuff. So even though he was quite quiet in the things that we've seen. I agree, Lisa. I think that Judge Francis Gull, has a good handle on this case. And I think that she has been doing the very best that she can. And I will be interested to see what happens from this. But, you know, there's I was thinking about it today. There's a number of reasons, and Deb and I talked about this on Saturday on my live. But, you know, stress, severe depression, anxiety, bipolar disease, which is there's bipolar 1 and bipolar 2, could all be reasons for the behaviors that his counsel is seeing. I mean, I think we all can imagine why he would be stressed and depressed, correct? Memory loss and irrational communication are not necessarily psychotic behaviors, you guys. Psychosis has 3 basic behaviors, which are delusions, confusion, and disturbed thoughts and hallucinations. Essentially, a psychosis is a mental break from current reality. And nothing that they've said is indicative that Richard Allen experienced any of these symptoms the day of the murder. So if the defense is looking for a not guilty by reason of temporary insanity, I don't think it's going to happen, but it still doesn't beg the fact that Richard Allen could have some sort of mental illness that is not been diagnosed or treated. Being incarcerated is stressful. And if you've never been incarcerated, you wouldn't even begin to understand. It's one of those things where we try to put ourselves in the other person's shoes, and you just can't do it with this. It is very stressful. He's lost his job. He's lost his livelihood. He lost his home. He's lost his family. He is only able to speak to them by phone, or tablet, whatever. He has not been able to see them in person for whatever the reason. And, you know, I think that it's very easy to see why someone would be cracking under the pressure. You have to remember, he was living normally for over 5 years in the community after these murders. And now he's experiencing all of this. It could be situational more so than mental health issues. But bipolar disorder, or bipolar or borderline personality disorder, he may have one of those diagnoses as well. Until a psychiatrist evaluates him, we're not going to know. But I can tell you, without proper sleep and without proper nutrition, you can absolutely start experiencing schizophrenic type delusions and behaviors, hallucinations, hearing voices. But there are some other symptoms of schizophrenia that need to be present to get that diagnosis, like flat affect and anhedonia. You know, he's been locked up for months, and he has been accused of an extremely heinous crime. He knows that. He is probably being screamed at and yelled at on the daily by other inmates, talking about killing him. Who knows? And it would be enough to cause anyone to have a breakdown, whether you're guilty or innocent. And I mean, I just don't see that he's sleeping. I mean, how could you possibly sleep with all of that going on? And lack of sleep is enough to put someone into a mental issue very quickly. So I think that, you know, I'm sure that the Indiana Department of Corrections has issues here that needs to be addressed. They need to act quickly and make sure, this is one of the most high-profile cases in Indiana's history. They want to make sure that they are doing everything possible to make sure that it will not end up in some sort of nightmare for the prosecution or the state. So, I mean, like we said, we don't know what treatment he's receiving at this facility. We don't know if he's being medicated in some way to make him seem more docile or more flat or more, you know, just kind of out of it, zoned out of it. We don't know. Hang on a second, guys. So I was able to obtain the motion to modify the safekeeping order. It was downloaded, and I was able to get a hold of it. And this is basically what it said, guys. Emergency motion to modify safekeeping order comes now the defendant, Richard M. Allen, by and through his attorney, Bradley A. Razzie, and respectfully request that this court modify the court order safekeeping order entered on November 3rd, 2022 in this cause. In support of said motion, Attorney Razzie states as follows. On or about October 28th, 2022, Mr. Allen was charged with 2 counts of murder. Mr. Allen's bond was set in the amount of $20 million. On November 3rd, 2022, prior to counsel being assigned to Mr. Allen, the Carroll County Sheriff, via formal motion filed his request by the Sheriff of Carroll County, Indiana, to transfer the inmate from the county custody of the sheriff to the custody of the Indiana Department of Corrections for safekeeping. On the same day, November 3rd, 2022, the Honorable Benjamin A. Diner, judge of the Carroll County Circuit Court, executed a court order granting the sheriff's request and further ordered the Carroll County Sheriff to transfer Mr. Allen to a facility within the Indiana Department of Correction, as designed and designated by the Commissioner of the Department of Corrections, suitable for Mr. Allen's safekeeping. All decisions regarding Mr. Allen's detention circumstances were made prior to counsel being assigned to Mr. Allen to speak on his behalf. No formal hearing regarding the sheriff's safekeeping request have been conducted as of the date of filing of this motion. Mr. Allen is currently incarcerated in the Westville Correctional Facility, where he has been detained since November of 2022. The Westville Correctional Facility is a maximum security prison operated by the Indiana Department of Corrections, wherein thousands of individuals convicted of the most serious crimes such as murder, rape, robbery, and child molestation are confined as a result of their convictions. To the best of counsel's knowledge, Westville Correctional Facility does not routinely house offenders awaiting trial who are presumed innocent, as the presumption should be with Mr. Allen. It is further noteworthy that Mr. Allen has been continuously assigned to a separate maximum security segregation unit within the Westville Correctional Facility, wherein the most dangerous offenders are held. Counsel has investigated and confirmed with prison officials that said the unit routinely houses individuals serving sentences of life without parole and others who have committed some of the most heinous crimes known to our society, or have been transferred to this unit after committing further crimes within the Department of Corrections. Counsel was informed by prison employees that said employees were not aware of any other circumstances wherein a human facing trial under circumstances such as these has been housed in said facility. Finally, counsel has discovered that Westville Correctional Facility has been the center of much attention in the recent past in matters involving unequal and inhumane treatment of offenders. The requirement of equal protection dictates, as appellees here agree, that pretrial detainees may not be treated less favorably than convicted persons, unless the difference in treatment is justified by a legitimate government interest. Brief of appellees at 43. As the Second Circuit Court indicated in Rem versus Malcolm in 1974, the demands of equal protection of the laws and of due process prevent unjustifiable confinement of detainees under worse conditions than convicted prisoners. Counsel recently visited the prison and was denied of his request to inspect his client's cell block and living circumstances. Despite this, counsel has reason to believe that Mr. Allen has been required to endure the following conditions over the course of his 5+ month detainment at this facility. Mr. Allen has been entombed in a cell as small as a 6 foot in width by 10 foot in length space, no larger than that of a dog kennel. Mr. Allen is sleeping on a pad on a concrete floor. Mr. Allen is afforded showers only 1 to 2 times a week. Mr. Allen is required to wear the same clothes, including underwear, for days and days on end, all of which are soiled, stained, tattered, and torn. Mr. Allen, who is continually or constitutionally innocent, is a constitutionally innocent man and maintains his factual innocence as well, has not been afforded any opportunity to visit with his wife or other family members during the last 5 months of incarceration, during which time he has been subjected to conditions akin to those of a prisoner of war. Mr. Allen is allowed only an electronic tablet through which he can make calls to his family members, all of which is monitored by the prison officials, with the cost of all phone calls being borne by Rick Allen and his family. Mr. Allen is routinely supervised by other inmates, companions as referred to within the confines of the prison, who sit on watch outside of his cell door on a daily basis. Mr. Allen is afforded very little, if any, recreation time outside of his cold concrete and metal quarters. Attorneys for Mr. Allen delivered nearly 1,000 pages of police reports to Mr. Allen on Friday, March 24th, with the intention of seeking their client's cooperation in his own defense. As of Monday, April the 3rd, said information had yet to be provided to Mr. Allen. The location of Mr. Allen's detention is such that he is isolated geographically, not only from his family, but also from his attorneys, who are required to travel for hours to speak with him in confidence regarding his case. Said visits also require making logistical arrangements with prison officials in advance of these visits. It is difficult, if not impossible, for Mr. Allen's attorneys to share confidential and sensitive information with Mr. Allen due to the logistical challenges associated with Mr. Allen's segregation and isolation, to the extent that Mr. Allen is being deprived of his constitutional right to assist in his defense. In contrast, the state of Indiana, through its prosecutorial and law enforcement divisions, sit in the comfort of their own command center, planning and preparing to prosecute Mr. Allen to the fullest extent of the law. In sum, Mr. Allen is being treated far less favorably than a convicted person, many of which are housed in less secure areas of the prison, are offered programming, therapy, and mental health services, routine recreation, and contact visits with family and friends. To further complicate matters, Mr. Allen has suffered from depression dating back to his early years. Upon his incarceration, Mr. Allen was presumably evaluated and medicated by prison medical staff. Up until a visit with Mr. Allen on April 4th, counsel for Mr. Allen found him to be polite, communicative, with great eye contact, generally responsive to our questions, and exhibiting a good sense of humor on occasion in spite of his false arrest and circumstances he finds himself in. However, Mr. Allen's deteriorating physical condition has been observed by counsel dating back to the beginning of the new year. As recently as Friday, April 24th, I think that's a misprint. As recently as Friday, April 4th, attorney Andrew Baldwin met with Mr. Allen with optimistic news about the direction of the case, and Mr. Allen was inquisitive about that information. He was thankful about the information and optimistic about the information. Only 10 days later, so it should have been on March 24th, they met with him. 10 days later, on April the 3rd, attorneys for Mr. Allen observed a steep decline in Mr. Allen's demeanor, his ability to communicate, his ability to comprehend, and his ability to assist in his defense. Simply put, this version of Richard Allen was a very different version than the counsel for Mr. Allen had interacted with over the past 5 months. Mr. Allen appeared to be suffering from various psychotic symptoms, which counsel will describe as schizophrenic and delusional. And counsel further believes that in our April 4th interaction, Mr. Allen seems to be suffering from memory loss and is demonstrating an overall inability to communicate rationally with counsel and family members. Counsel experienced these symptoms firsthand upon visiting Mr. Allen on Monday, April 4th. Mr. Allen's physical condition is deteriorating rapidly. Attached Exhibit A is a photo of Mr. Allen taken by counsel at the correctional facility on April 4th. This said photo reflects the significant toll of his current incarceration on his physical person and by extension, his mental capacity. By contrast, see attached Exhibit B, which reflects his condition a year or two prior to his incarceration. The conditions under which Mr. Allen has been forced to endure are akin to that of a prisoner of war. The test for determining the constitutionality of treatment of pretrial detainees alleged to deprive them of liberty without due process of law is whether these conditions amount to punishment of the detainee. And that is from Bell versus Wolfish, U.S. 520, 535, 99, SCT 1861, 1872, and 1979. Here, Mr. Allen is being punished to the fullest extent of the law. The conditions he is currently enduring have been thrust upon him without any judicial analysis of the need for such a deprivation of his liberty. Further, counsel is unaware of any facts outside of those generally alleged in the sheriff's safekeeping petition, which support the need to detain Mr. Allen on what could casually be referred to as death row. Approximately 2 months prior to the filing of this petition, Attorney Razzie was able to secure a more traditional bed space in the Cass County Jail, a newly erected modern facility with the most advanced security measures located directly across the street from Attorney Razzie's office and only approximately 20 miles from the Carroll County Courthouse. Said modification of Mr. Allen's incarceration would result in a more humane living environment in which Mr. Allen would be afforded immediate access to his attorneys, and more importantly, would allow Mr. Allen to have regular contact visits with his family. This detention circumstance would afford Mr. Allen the due process of the law. And under these circumstances, Mr. Allen would be treated like other inmates awaiting trial in the criminal justice system, as opposed to being punished based only on the merits of untested charging information and probable cause affidavit. In the process of facilitating Mr. Allen's removal from Westville Correctional Facility, Attorney Razzie communicated with Prosecutor Nicholas McClelland, who articulated that he had no objection to a modification of Mr. Allen's detention circumstances to a facility closer to Carroll County. Attorney Razzie was recently informed that the Carroll County Sheriff's Department declined Attorney Razzie's request to have Mr. Allen removed from the harsh conditions under which he is currently detained to a more traditional county jail near Mr. Allen's attorneys and family. Mr. Allen asserts that said denial is a deliberate attempt to impose conditions upon him that are intended to frustrate his purpose in defending against the charged allegations and create a hardship on him, which would drive any human to mental breakdown. Said approach to his pretrial detention is a direct infringement on his Sixth Amendment right under the U.S. Constitution. From a practical standpoint, it is also worth noting that the raw volume of discovery offered up by the state of Indiana in this case is overwhelming. For example, there exists nearly 3,000 pages of law enforcement reports that need to be examined in this case. In addition, there exists thousands of hours of surveillance video and video interviews of potential suspects, witnesses, and other interested parties. The discovery suggests that law enforcement authorities have processed over 31,000 tips during the course of the investigation, all of which must be reviewed by the defense. Reasonable access to Mr. Allen is necessary as he is needed to assist with the process of reviewing discovery. His current detention situation does not provide this convenience. As a further practical matter, both co-counsel for Mr. Allen are having to drive hours away from their respective law offices in order to talk with Mr. Allen, and the time spent on the road is much more costly for Carroll County taxpayers than housing Mr. Allen in Cass County, where everyone, except the Carroll County Sheriff, is on board with Mr. Allen being housed during the pendency of this case. Attorney Razzie believes an emergency exists and time is of the essence based upon the dramatic change in Mr. Allen's condition, including his change in demeanor, change in appearance, and change in his overall mental health status. And we respectfully request that this honorable court modify his safekeeping order and that order Richard Allen to be transported and housed at the Cass County Jail or somewhere near to his family and lawyers, and to do so without a hearing, or in the alternative, to conduct a hearing as soon as possible before Mr. Allen is placed in further jeopardy due to his current placement, and also so that Mr. Allen may assist his lawyers in addressing Mr. Allen's mental health concerns, as well as allowing Mr. Allen to participate in the preparation of his defense and for all other just and proper relief in this premises. Signed, Bradley A. Razzie, Certificate of Service. So that is, in a nutshell, what the motion was, you guys. It basically tells us everything. Yes, he is still in Westville as far as we know, Miracle Heart. There has been nothing updated on my case about any of this except the motion that happened a week ago. I'm just looking at what I missed in chat, you guys, when I was reading it. Lynn, he goes back to court in June. June 14th, I think. Yeah, June 15th at 8:30 a.m. is when he's due back in court. And that is his bail hearing. And the motion to modify the safekeeping order was put on the 5th of April. So we're almost 10 days later, and there's nothing on my case that's been said. So as far as I know, he's still in Westville. No, Lynn, that is not the trial. All that is a bail hearing. It's a hearing to find out if he is going to get out on bail or not. We're not going to see a trial until probably sometime next year. So, yeah, I don't see a problem with him being moved to county at all. I think they should. In all, you know, I just don't understand. He just needs to needs to go back to county jail and be held like everybody else that's being held awaiting trial. I don't think he's a flight risk. By the sounds of it, you know, he's not. So But yeah. So I just, like I said, I mean, it's, he's led a very organized, seemingly productive life after the murders. If you have mental illness with psychosis, somebody's going to notice that. He held a management position at CVS, and I don't see somebody who's got untreated severe mental illness with psychosis and schizophrenia and delusions being able to maintain those positions. I think that they're going to, the attorneys are going to grab at everything when they're trying to get their client moved. But like I said, he's not sleeping. We know he's probably not sleeping. And they've got other inmates guarding him. You heard that are sitting outside of his cell looking at him 24/7, watching him so he doesn't hurt himself. You can't even imagine what they may be saying to him, these other inmates. So originally, the My Case filing for this motion was made public and available for download, and then it was made locked and unavailable for download. And so that doesn't mean that it was intended to be confidential or sealed. But it looks like the courts didn't want it downloaded. So like we talked about, he's under an enormous amount of stress, and somebody posted on Reddit that he is being held in a maximum security prison in the Hole, being monitored by other inmates. And he's been there for months in isolation in a not good facility. Nothing about his psychological response to this can be taken as evidence that he killed 2 little girls. So it's, again, he's innocent, you guys, until proven guilty. But what I think it's interesting is the question came up about this was, why is the Carroll County Sheriff making custody decisions in this case at this point? Supposedly he was moved to Westville for his own safety, which is baffling, because how could he be safer at Westville Prison than in Carroll County Jail, where they have very few inmates? From the inmates to the guards, all the way to the food at Westville, if he was going to be on 23-1, they couldn't stash him in a small county jail somewhere and do the exact same thing with less money being spent to the county. I guess I can see why they wouldn't put him in Carroll County, but there's nothing wrong with him going to another county, Cass County. I think that somebody said there's like usually around 20 inmates at a time in Carroll County. How can that be less safe than a huge prison? I mean, in my opinion, Nick McClellan should be wanting him as sane as possible, as comfortable as possible, treated as well as possible until trial. Because it will be detrimental to the prosecution if this continues and this narrative continues that he's being mistreated. We just don't want to jeopardize this case before it even makes it to trial. And we don't want to have any appellate issues start piling up. And that's been my biggest fear all along since this all began. So, most jails are rough. Jail's not supposed to be fun. It's not supposed to be a great place. It's supposed to be a place you don't want to have to go back to. But I have spoken with Becky on occasion, just checking in with her and making sure that she's, that she's okay. And as everybody has said tonight, this is truly a nightmare for the families. Just a nightmare. And if we think this is hard for us to understand, you can imagine what is going on in their minds with all of this. And again, it goes back to, it's all about Libby and Abby, and that's how it should be. Miracle Heart says that her daughter went to the same Purdue camp for crime scene analysis, CSI, as Libby did. She goes, I can't help to think of my girl in college now for criminal justice, and Libby should be doing that too. Yeah, exactly. They were taken from their families for no reason. And it's truly sad. Well, guys, I really appreciate you all hanging out with me tonight. Obviously, nobody wanted to come on and talk, which is fine. But I will start having more call-in shows where if people want to call in and talk about, how they feel about the case or give their opinions on things, we will have different live streams where that will be possible. I always like sharing things with you guys. I always like hearing your opinions on stuff. You guys always have a really good thought process on things, and it's always nice to see how and what everybody's thinking about it. It's oh, okay. Miami, Miracle Heart says, never mind. They were thinking about Miami Correctional, not about Carroll County. So it's fine. I get stuff messed up, over there all the time. It's hilarious. Every once in a while, I'll hear somebody say Miami. Why are we talking about Florida? It's like, no, Miami County in Indiana. It's like, we need a fair trial. We need justice. We don't need any screw ups. We don't need him being mistreated that can screw up this case. That's for doggone sure. Oh, Jerry, thank you so much for being here. Truly appreciate you. Thank you so much. You guys take care of yourselves, and I will see you all on Saturday. Thank you so much again for being here.